Our next episode of Dashing Dan's Olympic Adventures for Aussie Home Loans. They deal with anyone in Australia. They've got clients in every state and capital. They do Zoom as well, and their areas of expertise include purchasing a property, owner-occupied investment, building a property portfolio, refinancing and debt consolidation. They've got over 25 lenders on their panel. We're looking forward to seeing how the women's hockey team, the Hockey Roos, go. They were the best team at the Olympics a fair while ago now, of course, but 1996, 2000, they dominated. Since then, they've finished fifth at most tournaments. And they've been pretty close. And in 2021, they were outstanding in the pool matches and then lost a very close, as is often the case in hockey. You can dominate a game and then lose 1-0 as they did to India and missed out on making the semi-finals. Playing in that game and playing now in her second Olympic Games for Australia is Steph Kershaw, and she's joined me on the program. Steph, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you. Well, it's a huge tournament for the Australian women's team. Is there some unfinished business from 2021 or have you moved on?
Look, I'm not going to lie. Yes, definitely. I think 2021, the way it ended was pretty heartbreaking for us as a team, especially, we were undefeated through the round matches and we had awesome momentum and we were doing really well. And then obviously we got to that quarterfinal and lost, which was a really hard way to go out after our performances in the pool matches. So I'm not going to lie, there's definitely some unfinished business moving forward into this Olympic cycle. But at the same time, like, you can't really dwell on what happened last cycle because otherwise you just go down this rabbit hole that you don't really want to be in. And it's completely different. Like, we have a new team. The teams we're versing are pretty much in the same boat. They're completely new as well. So it's a completely different tournament. But we want to definitely do better than we did last Olympics.
What have you learned from that, from a personal perspective and a team perspective? I mean, you didn't play badly against India. You just didn't win the game.
No, we didn't play badly. But I think, as the game went on and the time started ticking down, we kind of went away from our game plan and what we were kind of doing as a team. And I think that ended up being really detrimental. And we kind of all started getting really internal and trying to fix it, probably ourselves, knowing that if we lost this game, we were out. And I think since then we've done a really an abundance of work on our mental game and being able to stick to our processes and being able to keep doing the things that we know is going to work and not actually go away from just sticking to our process, really. So pretty much the last 3-4 years, it was 3 years, I guess, since last Olympics. So the last 3 years, we've kind of really worked hard on, stepping up in the big games, but also not going away from the things that we know will work for our team and what we do individually really well as well.
Trini Power, of course, is your coach. She's a dual Olympic gold medalist and outstanding player in her own right. I was watching her in that game. I can still remember the external behaviour was that she was very calm. I'm not sure how she was internally. And the public behaviour, the public persona, I'm not sure what she was like behind closed doors, but she didn't seem to change too much throughout that game. Even as you said a bit earlier, Steph, when it was ticking down and it was getting harder and harder for you to score at least the equaliser or score twice quickly to move on to the semi-finals.
Yeah, no, Trini keeps pretty calm and collected on the bench. She's not the type of coach that's really animated. She definitely, doesn't start yelling out. She really trusts us on the field and trusts our decision making. So that's pretty powerful to have from your coach, to be able to trust you once you kind of step on the field, that she's done everything she can. And of course she coaches and, will give us pointers at halftime and quarter time and stuff like that. But she really lets us, I guess, make the decisions and focus on what we have to do, not kind of listening to the bench half the time and trying to then put that on the field. And we've got a bunch of great leaders in the team as well that have worked really hard to be able to start making some coaching decisions on the field. And I think that's going to be something that really helps us in Paris as well.
You like the draw that the team's got? I mean, at the end of the day, there's not much you can do about it, but I would have thought if there's an easy draw, not that any draw is easier, you're not really in the group of death, as they talk about for World Championships or Olympic Games. There's no Netherlands, who are expected to win the tournament by the length of the Flemington Straight, and there's no Germany. There's some tough opponents, but to me, it doesn't look too bad.
No, we're pretty happy. I mean, at the end of the day, we'd be happy with whatever pool we get put in. You have to beat everyone to win the gold medal, pretty much anyway. But no, yeah, we think that we kind of match up pretty well against the people in our pool, and we've played most of the teams quite recently, so we kind of have had a look at what we are going to be expecting and stuff like that. So no, we're happy. But in saying that, yeah, we have to cross over with the other pool at some point, so we've got to be ready for anything.
Of course, and your pool is Argentina, Great Britain, Spain, USA, and South Africa. What's the recent record like against those teams?
Yeah, pretty good, I think. We haven't played against, I think, South Africa for a few years, maybe a year or two. But we versed most of the teams either in the World Cup or Pro League. And the track record against the guys in our pool is pretty good. You know, touch wood. I don't want to jinx us or anything, but no, I think we match up super well, and I think we're all just really excited to get that first game underway, and then just keep on taking it day by day.
That's become the new word, Steph, hasn't it? Versing. My kids use it as well. I mean, it wasn't something we used as kids, but it seems to have taken over as a word, as part of the English language nowadays, hasn't it?
It has. You know what? I don't even know what I would replace it with. I probably use it that often. It's pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, playing maybe, but anyway, yeah, it seems to have come in. It was annoying a few of us old people for a while, but at the end of the day, all the athletes are using it, so we're happy with that. Steph Kershaw is our guest. Very minor issue, Dan. Move on. Steph Kershaw is our guest for Dashing Dan's Olympic Adventures for Aussie Home Loan, to deal with anyone in Australia. They've got clients in every state and capital, and Steph is one of the stars of the Australian women's hockey team. There's been some controversy over selection. Rosie Malone, who was named as one of the players of the year last year, has missed out. Has that affected the team at all adversely? And if so, how have you all dealt with that? Or have you moved on pretty quickly and had to move on pretty quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I think it shows like having Rosie not be selected in the Olympic team shows like the depth that we have in the team. And I think that is in itself super impressive. And we have players of her quality that haven't made the team. So yeah, you can just imagine how talented the group is that is going to the Olympics. But yeah, it did obviously create, I guess, not the appeal itself, but I guess the media coverage was a little bit tough for the team to continue focusing on the job that we have to do, which is go to the Olympics and try to do our best for the whole team, the whole squad, and also for our country. But we had to also move on super quickly. And obviously, we all really felt for the girls that missed out. And, you know, you don't want anyone's dreams to be crushed about, you know, people dream about going to the Olympics since they were 5 or 6. But sadly, that is the way that sport kind of works. Like someone does have to miss out, and our hearts kind of go out to those girls because we know how hard and how much they've sacrificed as well. But we all feel really privileged and grateful that we are the ones being able to be in a position to perform at the Olympics and try to do our best for the whole squad, the whole country, and ourselves as well. So yeah.
Steph, were you surprised personally that she missed out?
You know, yeah, it was a tough selection. I think depending on how the year went, I think a number of selections could have happened. So, look, I was going to be surprised no matter what because I think the whole squad is really talented, and I think no matter who missed out, it would have been surprising. So, yeah, I mean, I'm glad I'm not a selector. I didn't have to make a decision. I just have to go out there and do my best for the team. But yeah, it's tough.
You're going beautifully here like an opening bat. Two more on this. She took it to the appeals. Was that disappointing? And did that cause a diversion in the preparation for the team, or was it out of the control of the rest of the team? You just had to control what you could control.
Yeah, no, it wasn't disappointing at all. I mean, we all knew that the appeals process was there, and so anyone could have made an appeal, and we all respect that. And that's not something that was disappointing. I think we all were fully supportive of people if they wanted to make the appeal process and go down that route, that they had their absolute right to do that. And that's been there for, the whole eternity. But most of the time, you probably just don't hear about it. But yeah, it's probably happened in the past as well. So yeah, that wasn't disappointing at all. I think we all knew that it was a pretty tough process, and our kind of, yeah, it was, our hearts went out for everyone that was kind of in that process as well. Um, but yeah, but no, and it didn't really. Like obviously, it was a bit of a waiting game because obviously, if the appeal did stay, uh, was approved, I think that's what you say. Yeah, that
Uh,
meant that the team, obviously would have to.
I mean, you would have accepted her if she had been if she had won the appeal. But at the end of the day, she didn't win the appeal. She lost the appeal, so the team stays as is. So I suppose you'd already started preparing for life without her. So you haven't really had to change much, have you?
No, exactly. We kind of just got on with it because that's really, it was out of our control. We had nothing really to do with the process. So we just had to keep training and keep, you know, uh, preparing the best we could. And I think that's like, the girls who missed out as well, they had to have to keep preparing in case there's an injury or something like that happens. So yeah, no one really stopped as far as I'm aware, and we all kind of kept training, kept putting our best foot forward, and yeah, just everything just continues.
Have you spoken to her?
Yeah, I spoke to Rose when the team first came out, and just I suppose said how tough it would have been, and I guess my heart broke for all the girls that didn't
Mm.
make it. And I think that's, the toughest thing about our sport is that sometimes things go in your favor and sometimes they don't, and we've all had tournaments or teams that we haven't made. So we all know how it feels, and it's not something that I kind of wish for anyone. So yeah, it's really hard, and it's a really tough position for anyone to be in.
And only you, as a member of the team, and the other members of the team know this, but does it get annoying, Steph? And Steph Kershaw has joined me for Dashing Down's Olympic Adventures, part of the Australian women's hockey team heading to Paris for the Olympic Games in a couple of weeks' time. How annoying is it when you hear on the outside that there's a major cultural problem within the Australian women's team that has been there for the best part of 20 years? Does that annoy you?
Yeah, it does, because I don't think the narrative about the culture of the team is correct. And I think, a lot of people, when you're on the outside of something, you can say what you want and throw stones, I guess. But no one really knows what goes on in the training environment except for the people in the team. And oftentimes we don't really want to talk about it because it's what happens behind closed doors, and
Mm.
it's not something that we feel the need to share. But like, we are all so confident about the culture within our team and how we support each other and the friendships we have and the camaraderie we actually have within the team. So yeah, I think to hear it challenged is really funny to me because I just know for a fact that that is incorrect. But it's how we, how we live, how we present ourselves on the field, and we just hope that this Olympics, we get to kind of show the world in Australia that we are a great team, and like, we want the best for each other, and we're there to support each other, and hopefully that kind of comes across when people are watching.
Do you feel more pressure on you considering that this has happened in the lead up to the games, or you're just going to go out there and think, well, we've got a clean slate now. This is a new Olympic Games. We're going to prove that this is a different team, and we can maybe win our first medal for the first time since 2000.
I mean, yeah, I mean, personally, no matter if it's an Olympic Games, if it's a test match, you always feel a bit of pressure because you want to perform and you want to do well for the girls around you, for the people at home. But the Olympics, it's like, it's that on steroids. So there's going to be pressure no matter what. And to be honest, like, half of high performance sport is forgetting about the pressure and going out there and trusting your process and being in the moment and being able to perform at your best. So pretty much what we're doing between now and then is trying to put that out of our minds and not really even think about, I suppose, the pressure that is on us, because it's not helpful. So yeah, so we're just trying to, be in our little bubble and do the best we can, and yeah, see what happens.
You mentioned test matches, you mentioned world championships. So you consider the Olympics the pinnacle? Why, if that's the case?
Yeah, we do. The Olympics and the World Cup, I think, are the pinnacle of our sport. Well, they are the pinnacle of our sport
Yeah.
because, you have the best teams competing, and they happen every 4 years. But, the Olympics, as much as I love the World Cup because it's solely focused on hockey and, it's a big show and dance about hockey itself. But the Olympics, I suppose, is the thing that you grow up before you start really knowing that you want to be a hockey-roo. Like I wanted to go to the Olympics before I wanted to be a hockey-roo. And I think that's the same for a lot of the girls. Like we all played a range of sports growing up, um, and we all kind of, saw Kathy Freeman running the 400 meters, and we were like, "Oh my god, that's amazing! Like that's what we want to do." And we've found our path kind of through hockey to the Olympic Games, and yeah, it's just a really special event.
Hockey Roo Steph Kershaw is my guest. She's part of the Australian women's hockey team. Her second Olympic Games. They finished fifth in Tokyo after an outstanding performance in the pool matches, got narrowly beaten in the quarterfinals, and they're a good chance with a pretty good draw, early days of hopefully advancing and maybe being in contention without putting too much pressure on Steph and the girls to at least win a medal. I wanted to go back to where it all started. You mentioned you played a lot of sport. You're from Townsville. How big a sport was hockey in Townsville, Steph?
You know what? In my mind, it was massive. It felt like half the town was always out there on the weekends. Um, but that's all I kind of knew as well. I mean, I played touch football and athletics and t-ball and tennis and a range of things in Townsville, which was so great because it's such a small city that you can kind of go from A to B in about 5 minutes. So you can get to about three different sports in the one day if you wanted to. But no, the hockey community there is amazing, and I haven't lived there in about 10 years, but they still, support me and send me messages and all this stuff. And my dad is still part of the club up in Townsville. So I hear a lot about how all the teams are going, and I still feel quite connected, even though I haven't probably been there in a long time. So I'm very thankful for the support that they have showed me.
When did you know that was the sport for you?
Oh, that's a tough question. I loved sport in general my
Mm.
whole life, and I still do. I still watch pretty much every sport in the world. But I guess because it was a family, my dad played, my brother and sister played. I just found myself constantly at hockey, and I think it helped that I was quite good at it as well. That probably helped. But yeah, I think I just love the team aspect, and the people there were so lovely and so supportive. And then I had some really great friendships out of hockey as well. And then I don't know how it happened, but kind of if I had to have the choice between playing hockey and playing another sport, I would just constantly pick hockey. So it was kind of just a natural progression. Um, and I loved it. I just thought it was the funnest sport ever.
When did you know that you're a chance of achieving your dream? You did say a bit earlier that it didn't matter which sport it was. You just wanted, after seeing Kathy Freeman, you just wanted to represent Australia in the Olympic Games. When did you know that hockey could be your sport at the Olympic Games? Was there a defining moment there, Steph?
Um, Gosh, it's funny because I just never thought that it wasn't going to happen, if that makes sense. Like I just
Mm.
kept thinking if I keep working hard and if I keep getting better, then like I don't see the reason that it wouldn't happen. And it probably helped that, I was able to like do the skills and score goals and make teams, that I kind of saw this progression for myself happening from a young age. Um, but yeah, it was probably when I was a bit older, maybe when I left town, sort of moved to Brisbane for the QAS. And I kind of got then, I was still in contention, still like playing well and performing, even though I was in a harder training group and there was really talented girls in there as well. And I just never felt like I kind of was dropping off. So yeah, I think it was just a natural progression that came with a lot of hard work. Um, but yeah, it was something that I kind of just not assumed would happen, but I just hoped that if I kept on this path and kept working hard, that it was in my cards.
I presume that as soon as you were chosen, to be a permanent member of the Australian squad and you moved to Perth, that you were getting closer to achieving your dream. What was that move like, going from, when we talk about it in AFL footy, which is a sport I cover closely and broadcast a lot of, that it's the biggest road trip from Perth to Brisbane or Perth to Queensland. I mean, far north Queensland, where you are at Townsville. Then you're moving to Perth, the other side of the country. What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was funny because when I got the email, I was so happy, but I also like was so kind of shocked that I was like crying because I knew that involved moving to Perth. But again, it's something that I knew I wanted to play for the Hockey Roos from an early age, so I was prepared and knew that that was the path that I had to move to Perth, and I was very ready to do that. But it was a tough year. My first year, I moved in 2015, and it took probably a year to really settle in and make that this city, Perth, my home. And I think that's what you have to do. You can't move somewhere for the sport that you love, wishing to be somewhere else, because it just is not conducive to being in a mentally well place, I don't think.
Mm.
So now, yeah, I live here full time now, and this is my home, and I will live here, I think, probably for the next few years, if not the rest of my life. So yeah, I love it. And it's a sacrifice that I knew I had to make, and I was very happy to make it. But it's hard, and yeah, it's hard for any young person to move halfway or the whole way across the country. But it's something that I'm glad I did, and I would do again in a heartbeat.
Hockey Roos Steph Kershaw has joined me for Dashing Down to Living Adventures for Aussie Home Loans. And they look after first home buyers, equipment loans, car loans, personal loans. And they've got over 25 lenders on their panel. And they also will deal with pre approvals as well. So you've got a centralised program with the hockey, and you never hear anything negative about that particular program. Why does it work, you think, to have all the best hockey players in the country based in Perth? We used to hear about the cycling, didn't work. People weren't that comfortable basing themselves in Adelaide, and they had a coach who said, unless you're in Adelaide, he wasn't interested in having you in the team. But it just seems to work beautifully in Perth, doesn't it? The hockey.
Yeah, I think it does. And I think because we're a team sport and hockey relies so much on like connections and leading and being able to pass to your teammates, that like it is imperative that you train together. And I think we all kind of understand that and know that if we were scattered across the country, and Australia's so big, that it would be so much harder to start creating those connections and know the in and outs of your teammates and stuff like that. So I think everyone, as sometimes as hard as it is, kind of accepts the fact that for our team to be as successful as it can be, the centralized program is the best way for us to achieve that. And we're lucky that Perth is a beautiful city, even though it is really far away. But we all love the beach, we love coffee, and Perth has such a lovely beach and coffee culture, that we are all kind of stoked with that. Yeah.
But does it not annoy you? I lived in Perth too, Steph, that there's no daylight saving. You've got the best sand, beautiful soft sand, the best beaches, and at 6 o'clock it's dark in summer.
I know. I was. It's sometimes, yeah. It's, you know what, I'm not up that early, and if I am, I'm at training anyway, so it doesn't really bother me. But I'm sure it probably bothers some people that are early risers, but that's not me.
Now, you mentioned before about the importance of being a centralised program to mesh in different characteristics and different personalities. How long does it take for that to work? When you sort of have a new team, and there are obviously new girls in this team that are going to their first Olympic Games, and they'll all have different sets of nerves and different sets of anxieties, no doubt, in getting prepared for the Olympic Games. How do you ensure that you make sure that that's all bedded in place to be comfortable that the whole team will be on the same page, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it is hard, like, and when you're new, you don't really have an understanding of, like, I suppose, the ins and outs of everything. So you're just trying to learn as much as you can and, do your best at the same time, but take on all this new information, and it can be really overwhelming. But myself and like the girls that have been there for a long time, we do understand that because we were in that position at one point. And so we know that we have to kind of do as much as we can to help those girls like quickly learn to the best of their ability, and also for them to be able to then bring their strengths as well, because they're not picked because they're not good hockey players. Everyone is a good hockey player, and then it's just about finding out how you kind of can mesh in the team and bring your strengths to the team, but also play within the team kind of processes and stuff like that. So it's hard, but also like, if any of the girls have any questions, and I did this for my first Olympics, I'm asking the girls that have been to Rio and stuff like that all these questions, and they're more than happy to answer. And yeah, we have such a big team that you're never like by yourself. You always have one of your teammates with you. So yeah, everything that's a little bit overwhelming, I think, is made a lot easier in a team sport.
This Olympic Games, though, Steph, is different for you. You're playing in front of crowds. There'll be massive crowds too. And I had Tracy Holmes, respected broadcaster on Dashing Down to Olympic Adventures for Aussie Home Loans. And she sadly, and she was right, I suppose, described Tokyo as a lonely games because of COVID, because of the pandemic, that there weren't allowed crowds. What was that experience like? And did it dampen your enthusiasm at all for the games? And now you get an opportunity to get a normal Olympic Games.
Yeah, it was funny because by the time the Olympic Games kind of came around, the last one, we were so used to playing in front of no one and playing without a crowd. So like it wasn't a weird thing for us at that point. And I think like anyone, COVID times was like really strange, but it became normal so quickly. Um, and we were kind of lucky because everyone that had gone to the Olympics before said it was so fun because the Australia team was so close, and you got to kind of hang out with not just your sport, but all the other sports, who at other Olympic Games probably would have, been doing here and there and out of the village and all this stuff. But because there was kind of nothing to do and we had no family and no supporters to go and see, everyone kind of hung around at the Team Australia building, and it was a really lovely and really fun vibe to be a part of. But in saying that, I am so excited to have massive crowds and be able to play in front of stadiums that we probably would never play in front of if it weren't for the Olympics. So yeah, I'm happy with both scenarios, to be honest.
So obviously Tokyo being your first Olympics, you said the World Cup's a great event, but it's all hockey. Having other athletes sort of rub shoulders with, how good was that in 2021, and how better even will
Yeah,
it be in 2024 in a couple of weeks' time?
it was super fun. And just the excitement, when people came back to the village with their Olympic medals and stuff like that, it was just so cool and so fun to watch, and so fun to be a part of not just your journey and your team's journey, but the whole Australian team's journey. And it was just awesome to see people's hard work paying off and getting to know other sports and being able to support them as well. But yeah, we really were just focused on Team Australia, and we were all a bit scared to go out of our Australian bubble because no one wanted to get kicked out of the village because they got COVID. So I think this time it's going to be super fun to, like swap badges with different countries and kind of get to know a whole different range of athletes as well, which will be really fun.
Were you envious when you saw some of your fellow Australian teammates with medals draped around their necks, thinking I'd love the next one to be me after, of course, you lost that quarterfinal?
Oh yeah, 100%. As much as I was stoked for everyone that did win a medal,
Yeah.
you feel like a failure, as harsh as that is, when you don't come home with one, because you've dedicated the last 4 years to coming home with a medal, and coming home with a medal for your family, for your country, and for your team as well. So it was tough, but at the same time, I'm not going to be there and being jealous or sad. It's amazing that the people that did win those medals, um, and that's just, yeah, it's awesome. But it's tough. It's a tough place to be when you don't have one.
Just on a positive note, I mean, you had to, after you'd lost that quarterfinal, after going through undefeated, you then had to get off the canvas, Steph, and play for fifth and sixth, and you won that match. So how proud were you of yourself and the rest of the team that you managed to do that? That you, okay, we're not going to win a medal. We're out of the tournament in regard to winning medals, but we've got a match to play to save face. How important was that?
Well, we actually did it. So
You didn't?
you don't have to play. So once you lose a quarter, no, it's done and dusted. You lose your quarter, you go home.
Right.
And it was just on the count back that we came fifth. I'm not sure because most tournaments, like in the World Cup and everything, when it's just hockey, you do. But for the Olympics, it just goes on count back. So yeah, it's done.
Would you prefer that to happen? Give you a chance to prove yourselves that, okay, we might have had a
Uh,
bad game or a bad 10 minutes, but we're better than that?
I think yes and no. Honestly, like at that point in time, like I was so shattered and heartbroken that I would have found it like we would have managed to get up and play, but at the same time it would have been really difficult. And I mean, we've done it before. Like we've lost the semi at the World Cup, and we had to get up the next day and play for third and fourth, and you just forget about it. You have to move forward and play the next game. Um, so yeah, part of me would have liked to play for fifth and sixth, and then part of me would have found it really difficult. Yeah.
The fact that you finished fifth on countback just indicated that you weren't far away. Were there times during that tournament, without mentioning the war too much, Steph, and Steph Kershaw is my guest on Dashing Down to Olympic Adventures. She's a hockey room in her second Olympic Games for Aussie Home Loans. They've got 25 lenders on their panel around Australia. That, I mean, it just indicated how well you were going in the lead-up matches. We almost, for want of a better expression, indestructible in those not lead-up matches, but pool matches that you were playing so well.
Yeah, it's funny because, we actually lost less games than people that made the semifinals. So that was
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
hard pill to swallow. Um, yeah, but we did feel like we felt like we had just got the momentum, and obviously, a lot of people know that we had a really challenging period going into that Olympics. And the fact that we were able to kind of get it together and perform so well as a team was just phenomenal. And we did feel like everything was going right, and it really taught us that you can't just because yesterday went well that today is going to go well, and that's something that we've really taken forward. Like you have to show up every day and fight as hard as you can, and not just rest on what happened yesterday because it's not going to help you in the match today. So that was a massive learning curve for all of us, I think.
I'm not saying you were mentally off. I've watched that entire game. My brother's madly into hockey. He's life member of the Latrobe University Hockey Club here in Melbourne. He absolutely loves it, and still he's mad, Steph. He still plays at 54 and gets hammies and all sorts of things. Old man's injuries. I'm telling you, you got to retire to him, but he loves it. And we were watching it, and I thought you were playing pretty well. Did you feel though during the game, and I suppose you can as an elite athlete, that you might have been a fraction mentally off and might have been a fraction physically off, and no doubt all the girls are trying to push each other, that it just wasn't quite happening?
Yeah, I think you know what we in the first half, like we hit two posts,
Yeah.
which is like a millimeter off scoring a goal, which
Yeah.
is tough. And then I think, yeah, the first half was going really well, and then it was, I think, once we hit the second half in the fourth quarter, when the time again just started ticking away, that was when we started to really struggle mentally. Um, and it was a hot day, and I think a lot of the things just probably played on our minds that shouldn't have if we had learnt now like what we know now if we had back then about just staying in the moment, staying in your processes, doing your processes, and playing the team game. And I think it was just like the perfect storm, and we just, yeah, in the last quarter, the last half, we kind of lost our way. And yeah, obviously we lost, so
So you think you've obviously learned from that. I mean, it's 3 years down the track now about how to sort of stay in the moment a bit more. I mean, that's a big expression that they use in sport nowadays from a psychological viewpoint, isn't it? Stay in the moment. Stay in the moment. Don't get ahead of yourselves. Don't worry about what's happened. Forget about what could happen in front of you. Just stay in the moment and try and deal with what might happen right there. Correct?
oh, well, I think I loved it because it has so many different facets to it. Like you have to be fit, you have to be fast, you have to be skillful, you have to be strong, and you get to challenge yourself in so many different ways. and you get to train so many different skills at the same time. So for me, it's like this well-rounded sport that has so many different things that you need to be good at. And I think any person that plays elite sport does it because they they like a challenge and they like to be challenged at different things. I think hockey does that to the T. And also you get to play with your friends and make friendships that I hope will last, my lifetime. And it's just so fun to be able to do things as a team and have your best friends playing alongside you.
You spend a lot of time together, or is it important to have a bit of a break from each other after training and playing?
We do spend we do spend a lot of time together. Most of us go out for coffee after training, or we have, dinner later in the week or something like that. But there's a healthy balance. I think you can't spend all your time with your teammates, otherwise you will go a bit crazy. So it's important to have different interests and different friend groups outside of the team. But in saying that, we all spend a lot of the time together because you can just relate to each other so easily. You're going through the same thing, you have the same worries and the same issues, and you have a lot to talk about what happened on the field that day as well. So it's hard to separate sometimes, your personal life and your hockey life, especially when you see those same people all the time. But I think we manage it now really well. Like we all, work or study or do something else with our time. So we have different avenues to go down to meet new people and have, different friend groups as well. So it's definitely good to have a balance.
So you studying or you're working, Steph?
I have one last placement to do for my teaching degree that I haven't been able to do yet because obviously hockey commitments are quite large and this is a 10-week placement. But I'm doing that at the end of the year this year. So I will be done and dusted with my studies by then.
And then you'll be able to get a job next year in between your hockey commitments, which would be good. Is that primary or secondary teaching?
Doing primary teaching. Yeah. So
Oh,
hopefully
very
doing a
good.
bit of substitute teaching next year to get me into the groove of things.
That'll be fantastic. Now, obviously, as you said, it's a big coffee culture over in Perth. It's a big coffee culture in Melbourne. I lived in Perth for a while. Fremantle was a place to be, even though I lived the other end of town at Mount Hawthorn when I lived in Perth and worked for the ABC. Where's the best coffee in Perth? Is it Leaderville? Is it Subi? Is it Frio?
You know what? Well, I just got a coffee machine. So in my opinion, the best coffee is at my house.
Right.
Um, but you know what? I'm gonna say anywhere in Cottesloe does a pretty good cup of
Yes.
coffee, and you got the view of the beach, so that's hard to beat.
Yeah, it's a beautiful part of the world down there, isn't it? Now, just before I let you go, there's a,
Mm.
a, a good mix of youth and experience. Tell us about the newer members of the team, what we're likely to expect from them in their first Olympic Games. Players that we haven't really heard much of just yet, but have got their opportunity at these games in a few weeks' time.
Oh, I mean, they're so talented. We've got, I guess, the girls playing their first Olympics. We've got Claire Colwell, who's so strong and has been training so well. And she can throw overheads. She, defends really well. She's in the back line, and she's just a strong, solid defender. And I think she's can also put in a flick or two on a short corner, so she'll be awesome. We've got Grace Young, who is literally like a little terrier in the midfield, just running around getting the ball. So she's a great addition to the midfield. We've got Tame Stewart, who can throw probably like a half hill overhead
Wow.
and is incredibly strong. So she's an awesome person to have on the pitch. I'm trying to think who else is the first time Olympian, but they're probably the three
Tom
newbie. Oh, and
Craig's
Alice,
partner.
obviously.
Yeah, Tom
She's,
Craig's partner, Alice. Yeah, she's
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, she's a great striker. I connect really well with her going forward. So you can find her super easy in the circle and she can get shots away super quickly. So, I think she's going to be a really awesome addition as well to the front line. So, yeah, all the girls in their first Olympics should be so confident and because they're, absolutely ready to take on the challenge and very happy to be playing alongside them.
And you remain confident in all the digital replays that we've got in place nowadays for all these elite sports that probably cost Australia a medal in the men's, in certainly a gold or silver medal in the men's when Pakistan scored a goal outside the circle back in 1984. Talked to Rich Charlesworth about that, but things have changed a lot since then. You feel confident that the system will be okay technically?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad we have it. It's definitely changed the game for the better. But in saying that, there's still a lot of controversial decisions that come from it. And I think we've seen that in the past couple of tournaments. But I would rather have it because obviously, if there's a blatant foot or something like that, it's really easy to see. But, a lot of the times it is up to the umpire to kind of make a call. And oftentimes it's about the interpretation of the rule, which I think can be quite challenging. Um, because I think different countries interpret rules differently, which is tough sometimes.
And if you played as a team on the French hockey pitch in Paris? And if so, what was the experience like? And if not, are you concerned about that?
No, so we haven't played there yet. We've had staff members go over and just like check it all out. But no, we haven't played on it. We've been told a few things by different countries that have played on it. But it's like any turf. You get over there, you've got to get used to it as quickly as possible. Um, yeah, and it'll be fine. There's only minor differences between turfs, but I'm hoping it's kind of pretty fast, pretty quick. I think that will suit us nicely.
It's an even playing field, really, isn't it? Everyone's got to play on it, don't they? And adapt the best way they can.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's the team that probably does that the best that is gonna go the best. So we've just got to get on with it, no matter what it feels like. So yeah.
Well, Steph, it's been a delight chatting to you. I wish you all the best. Let's hope the girls go really well. I'm sure they will. It was a magnificent effort in Tokyo, just falling a bit short in the quarterfinals, but this is a pretty good team. You've got a pretty good draw without putting too much pressure on you. And I hope that this team goes really well in the women's hockey tournament at the Olympic Games in Paris. Steph Kershaw has been my guest for Aussie Home Loans for Dashing Down's Olympic Adventures. They deal with anyone in Australia. They've got clients in every state and capital. They do Zoom as well, and their areas of expertise are purchasing a property, owner-occupied or investment, building a property portfolio, refinancing, debt consolidation, cash out, construction, pre-approvals, first home buyers, equipment loans, car loans, personal loans, and they've also got over 25 lenders on their panel. Thanks so much for being so candid today. Good luck in the game, safe travelling, and we look forward to watching you closely. Go well.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.